Believe that it is a total red herring, and I think that our colleague Senator Schumer is right to insist demand for this $3.5 billion in budget cuts to be dropped completely from the TRIA negotiations. If Chairman Hensarling drops these unrelated demands, then I'm very optimistic the realization of TRIA very soon. But time is running out. It will expire in 4 weeks. And if we cannot reach a deal on TRIA soon, there really is only one option, and that is to put the bipartisan Senate bill on the floor for passage. It has already passed the Senate 93-4, overwhelmingly bipartisan support, and it would pass in the House of Representatives overwhelmingly. Hopefully, we can reach a deal on TRIA soon, but if we don't, the fallback is not a short-term extension. That will fail on the floor. It is the Senate bill. Thank you very much. And I now call on my colleague from the great state of New York, Nydia Velasquez, who is on the Financial Services Committee and also the ranking leader for our party on the Small Business Committee, which is deeply impacted by TRIA.
Thank you, Carolyn. Following the events of 9/11, hundreds of insurers withdrew from the terrorism risk insurance industry. The absence of coverage contributed to massive job losses and billions of dollars in damage. According to the GAO, terrorism remains an uninsurable risk making TRIA necessary for continued economic growth. TRIA enables small businesses to manage terrorism risk, grow their business, and create jobs. The program has tripled the number of small businesses that have terrorism protection since 2002. Today, over 60% of small businesses have coverage. Without that figure will fall to rates remain affordable for businesses. Current rates for small businesses average 3 to 5% of their property insurance premium. Without the government backstop, private insurers will be forced to substantially increase rates. As a result, the character of many communities will change as mom and pop stores get pushed out by well-financed big box stores. TRIA also recovery programs like SBA Disaster Loan Program. In absence of insurance, they will then submit disaster loan applications to SBA. As more small businesses purchase terrorism policies, they will be less likely to need disaster assistance loan from the SBA. TRIA is an important backstop for economic prosperity of the nation. The program facilitates economic development not just in large cities like New York, but across the country. In towns building new stadiums and manufacturing facilities, and for cities seeking to host large events like the Super Bowl or Olympics. Economic security is also vital to Homeland Security. When 9/11, many businesses in New York stopped purchasing from vendors Ohio, Oklahoma, Florida. And some of those small businesses then went to apply for disaster loan through SBA. They were, they suffer economic injury from the disaster terrorism attack that suffered New York City. This is not only Boston, New York. This is something that is important to provide stability for small businesses in New York and across. And now I will yield to Member Beatty from Ohio.
Thank you. I proudly add my voice to the other esteemed members here today, calling for the urgent reauthorization of TRIA to its expiration in just 27 days. And as you've heard, TRIA is important, yes, to New York and Boston and California and Florida, but I'm from the great state of Ohio, and it is important to us as well. I've had conversation after conversation with financial managers at institutions who want TRIA. This is true in my district, home of the largest single campus university and one of the largest university stadiums in the country. Also, home of the largest insurance company in the nation, asking us to work towards reauthorizing TRIA. And these are just two examples. Today, I heard a voice of unity. My colleagues, asking our Republican colleagues to make sure that we have more than a short-term fix for this. So let us remember, we have the opportunity to reauthorize a program that you have heard repeatedly that has not cost any money and allows our insurers to provide products that are widely desired and used. So let me end with, let's get to work and reauthorize TRIA. The clock is ticking. Thank you.
Well, you do understand that our position has been that we support the Senate version, and we don't support Mr. Henselin's bill. They're in negotiations now, and my last conversation with Schumer was stay strong, insist on the Senate bill, get everything you can get, and we'll be very appreciative for it. Advocate any changes at this point. Let the negotiations go forward.
But I think it's important to note that this is a public-private partnership. When we did the first authorization of it, it was listening to the community about when we want to inject certainty into a situation that was very chaotic following 9/11. It was about the duration, the amount of money, the stopgap, and the rest. And it was clear, it was logical what the public-private agreement was on it. So you can't it's difficult to take pieces of it out without affecting the oneness of it. And I will pass it. We could have passed it like that. They were public-private wise on what it should be. And every month that went by from September 9/11 to the end of the following year was more uncertainty. And when you don't pass a bill, the uncertainty of if you're ever going to pass a bill also has an impact. So the Senate bill is clearly what is needed. It could go to the president's desk later today or the beginning of next week. Choice we'll have.
Yes.
But it seems like they're close from what I hear to a deal, and that deal does include some changes to the Senate bill. Are you aware
We've heard
of
that
that
before,
deal? Are you okay with the changes that Schumer and Henseling are agreeing on?
One of the things you find is that when negotiations are going on and leaks are being made, is being done, that you hear a lot of things about what is supposed to be done in those negotiations, and we have to be very careful. One thing that I work with Mr. Henselin, and he And so you may hear one thing this hour and another thing the next hour. So I would not, if I were you, consider that any rumors that you are hearing are all. Let's wait and see what happens.
And
Yes.
I do believe when they heard that we were coming out of our caucus this morning, having this press conference, it motivated them to look more closely to speeding up a timetable or actually having the front office negotiation instead of having Mr. Henseling.
Maxine,
That's,
that's a good-
yes, please.
just for a moment, it'd also be clear that many of us wanted a longer period than the 7-year bill, so we've already compromised. I personally wanted at least a 10-year bill. Some were calling for permanent extension of TRIA. So there's been some compromise already. Where we want something substantial, no short-term extensions. That's already been over and over again, but we want something substantial to give the business community the faith that they need in this system, to know that it will be there for them. The certainty is what we're looking for.
Yes.
Should it be not just insist on a permanent type of program? I mean, can you ever imagine a time when TRIA insurance needed?
That's a very logical question. And some of us would certainly like to not have to be continuously reauthorized and fought over, et cetera, because we all know that we have witnessed terrorism in this country. And we want to make sure that the insurance companies are able to model the cost of insurance in ways that it is affordable. And we have said we mandate that you make terrorism in coverage, and we're going to it for you. And once you have, as it is in law now, spent this $100 million, we have the backstop for you to ensure that we can rebuild.
Covering this topic, but I'm also covering omnibus.
Yes.
Are you confident that you'll be able to, since they need your votes, that you'll be able to keep the riders that they're currently negotiating over to a minimum?
Well, that would be the hope. I have a friendship once again to the Speaker to say we stand ready to cooperate. There's some of those riders that we were those riders have confidence. Rita Lowy, our negotiator, and the Senate Democrats on the subject of the riders. But until we see the bill, there's no way you can say you support it or not. But I just remind you that it's a value to us to keep government. It isn't necessarily a value to the other side, and in fact, it was the House Democrats that opened up government last year because they did not have the votes on their side to open it. They had closed it. And I also remind, since you asked the question, that before they shut down government, and it's important to note this, before they shut down government, decided that we would go from the $1,057 billion number down to, was it 988? Like 80 billion, it was 1088. $80 billion reduction, very harmful. Their chairman, Mr. Rogers, said, we cannot have responsibilities to the American people at this level. But this was the House Republican number, 988. Harry Reid said, in order to keep government open, we'll accept the number. The President of the United States said, accept the number. I called the Speaker, said, House Democrats will give you the votes to keep government open, although we do not, Mr. Hoyer should be here because he railed against that number because it was, but nonetheless, closing to government is unthinkable. So I called him, I said, okay, we'll give you our votes so that you don't shut down government, we'll accept your number. The only people who did not accept the House Republican members, and they overwhelmingly voted down government for 17 days. And when they finally, by public pressure, came back, it was Democratic votes that opened our veterans and our men and women in uniform and our national security that we can't shut down government. I hope they would have as well. And again, we stand ready to cooperate, to find common ground. It's not going to be all our way. I look forward to some kind of response from the Speaker. Either has the votes and he's going to proceed with it, or he needs our help, and we have to get rid of those, many of those riders. But you asked confidence. I have confidence in Rita Lowy. Thank you.
Thank you all so very much. We're in ongoing conversations with Mr. Schumer, and I better go check up on how he's doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Maxine.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Check his pulse.
Hold tight.